As just a quick review, in the last section we discussed the difference between project management process groups and project life cycles. The rest of this CBT will cover process groups and the various knowledge areas. Remember, the process groups include initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. The first topic, initiating, occurs at the beginning of the project and the beginning of each project phase. It signals the formal beginning of a project and authorizes the assignment of resources to the project, and later to each phase. Outputs of the initiating process are inputs to the planning process group. The planning process group begins with the articulation and confirmation of the project's objectives at its beginning. The planning repeats throughout each of the life cycle phases to ensure the project has remained consistent with these objectives and that they have not changed without review and sign-off. The project manager or project sponsor produces and selects alternative approaches on how to conduct the project. Within the planning process, the project manager produces high-level requirements and identifies stakeholders. He also produces documentation that's referenced throughout the life cycle of the project. This planning encompasses all areas of project management. As the name suggests, plans produced in the planning process group are put into action. The project manager coordinates and manages resources, budget, schedules, scope, and ensures project objectives are met. The PM will also track costs, which are usually highest during this phase, because the most resources are engaged. And lastly, any changes to the project are identified and approved before they can be implemented. Typically, during the execution of a project or its phase, the project manager also measures and analyzes performance regarding scope control, quality, schedule adherence, project objectives, and/or budget. The PM will take corrective actions if the measurements surface an issue. The goal is to control the project and keep it on track. Scope control is emphasized in this area, and the project manager identifies and procures approvals on changes to the project before they can be implemented. Lastly, we have the closing process group. This brings a formal end to the project activities for either a phase or for the entire project. The project manager archives project information for future usage and closes contracts with vendors and suppliers. This table summarizes the relationship between key areas of the project with each process group. As you can see, some areas such as costs and staffing levels are low at the beginning of the project, while others, such as chance for successful completion and risk probabilities, are at their very lowest at the beginning of the project. Stakeholder influence, however, is high at the beginning. And it's important to make sure all stakeholders have had their say on the product and project requirements in this stage. It's much more difficult and costly to include requirements further into the project. Take a moment to review this table and understand the relationships in each area. It's definitely a topic that shows up on the exam. In the next section, we'll begin reviewing the 9 individual knowledge areas.